What is good, everyone? I'm Ryan McDaniel, and this is the Views from the 573 Draft Day 1 recap show. As we had a lot of twists and turns on night one of the draft, we got you all covered here as we are going to go through all those twists and turns here on night one. You can check out the audio version of this, it'll be up on whichever podcasting platform is your preference, or you can check us out on YouTube, 573 Podcast, and we'll have a video version of the pod up there as well with a lot of new bells and whistles that are going to be coming up on the screen. So, without further ado, let's get on into the and before I should say before we get on into the recap on day two, I will be joined by Matt Mormon of the ADP Average Dudes podcast, and we will be talking about day two, talking about rounds two, rounds three, and some of our thoughts on those picks. So you don't want to miss that. Same thing with that one. There'll be an audio and video version of that one as well, probably on Saturday, with the draft being on Friday night two, rather. So let's get on into the first few picks. Let's talk about. We're not going to spend too much time on the first couple picks because it feels like we knew what they were going to be for the longest time. And of course, let's start here with Caleb Williams here going to Chicago at number one. No surprise here, and it really felt like it was all leading up to this, and now the Bears got their franchise quarterback, and they showed the graphic up there in the draft, and it was just, man, you got Trubisky, you got Fields, and it just was not a good graphic. And now you got Caleb heading there to Chicago. Honestly, was happy that the Bears didn't use too much of their time, used the whole time to make everybody wait when everybody knew who they were going to pick. So Caleb goes number one to Chicago, and we've talked about it time and time again. It may be the best situation a number one overall pick has gone into in a long time. Now, of course, we'll talk about what the Bears did at 9 a little bit later, and that only added to this for Caleb. But for Caleb, of course, a couple things he needs to work on. The fumbles were a problem at a USC, especially last year. Ball security, get that in check. And also just learning like Mahomes did, take and make, you got those superhero type plays where you want to put on the cape. But if there's something there, take it. And then maybe that big play can be available a little bit later on down the line. So Caleb goes there to Chicago. Really not a whole lot of surprise there. And not a whole lot of surprise either with number two either. And that is Jayden Daniels going to the Washington Commanders. Not a whole lot of surprise there, as it seemed like it was trending towards Jayden for a while now, and that's the direction of Washington went. And listen, I think it's the better spot for Jayden out of them and New England. You got weapons there. You got an offensive coordinator and Cliff Kingsbury there, who's got a good system there. And I feel like that's the best spot for Jayden and for his development going forward, who's going to be stepping in right into the role, I assume, week one. And so now you put him in there with what the Commanders did. You got Dotson, you got McLaurin, you signed Ertz. You might end up drafting some other weapons on that side of the ball. I assume they're going to go for a tackle here on day two and try to help shore up left tackle. But if you're Washington, you take Jayden Daniels, who's got Lamar Jackson-esque qualities, who can really help you out. And even if you don't get as much help on the offensive line as you want, he can go and make explosive plays with his legs. But the question is with him is his weight and, him taking some big hits. So obviously you're concerned about that a little bit. But if you're Washington, you take a dynamic quarterback here who had an awesome year and last year at LSU, winning the Heisman Trophy and making a leap. Surprise, surprise, an LSU quarterback made a historic leap. I think from Jayden, he was probably a round 3, round 4 type of guy, probably heading into the season, and he just catapulted all the way up here to number 2 to Washington. So the Commanders get their quarterback of the future, as do the New England Patriots taking Drake Maye from North Carolina. And listen, Patriots, they just got to sit back and just say, hey, we get to pick whoever Washington doesn't, and we're gonna roll with it. And there's a lot to like about Drake. We've talked about him before here in the lead up to the draft. I do hope New England does get the talent around him, get some help on the offensive line, get him some help at receivers, and I think that's going to be the plan. It should be the game plan for the rest of the draft is try to help out your young quarterback for all these guys. For the Bears, maybe not so much, but for Washington, for New England, and for a couple other teams later on down the line, I think that should be the game plan. Is just trying to help out your young quarterback. And New England, listen, they got a guy that has some Justin Herbert in him, that's got some potential Josh Allen in him. And so if you're in New England, you take that, you want you run to the podium, you select him, and you feel good about it. His family he comes from a family where guys win. Remember Luke May from North Carolina, winner there. So a family that has a winning tradition, a place, even though they haven't won in football, but a place that has some winning traditions there with other programs. So you get Drake there, and you build around him. And man, I hope they have the tools in place because Drake, if you remember his freshman season, his redshirt freshman season, he was outstanding and he had all those weapons. And so now I think if you're New England, you take a look at what he did that year and you just get him all the weapons that you can get and just let him go. And then you get that version of Drake May, and that's your franchise guy for the next 10 to 15 years. So Drake May goes to New England at number 3. And then at number 4, this is kind of, I felt like where it kind of got to start, get a little bit dicey here is number 4 with the Arizona Cardinals, with teams potentially looking to trade up and maybe get that fourth quarterback, maybe take JJ McCarthy. The Cardinals, Monty Ossenfort moved around last year after trading down. They stuck to their guns this year, stuck at number 4, and they selected Marvin Harrison Jr. And pretty much the draft was chalk, pretty much through those first 4 picks, pretty much expected. Maybe you can say 5 and 6 were kind of expected too, but Marvin goes to Arizona. We kind of figured this was going to be the plan all along. Marvin was a clear number 1 receiver on the board, and the Cardinals, he's one of the best players in this draft, and it was at a position of need for the Cardinals. And so they get somebody for Kyler Murray to throw to, along with Trey McBride, along with Michael Wilson. And listen, the Cardinals are going to have more picks in this draft, in which maybe they can address some more needs on the offense. Maybe they get another receiver to help out. They did lose a couple in Hollywood Brown and Rondell Moore, so maybe they go and add to that and help out that offense a little bit more. But no surprise here. Marvin going number 4 to the Cardinals. And you've already got fancy questions being brought up in the group chat talking about him. So that tells you where everybody's thinking now. Marvin is going to be, he's going to be special, I think, at this next level. And I'm really excited to see him take snaps next year. And going back to fantasy, I really want to know where he goes in the fantasy drafts. Uh, we were talking about that earlier. And so I'm curious about that. But for Arizona, love this pick. It's a great pick for them for their future, and they get another foundational piece at wide receiver after drafting Larry Fitzgerald all those years ago. They get another guy in which I think he can be that for the Cardinals. So Arizona gets the top receiver in the draft. Now let's go to number 5. Let's go 5 and talk about Joe Alt to the LA Chargers. And, the Chargers were a team that had some potential trade down opportunities. They stuck to number 5 and they selected Alt, the tackle out of Notre Dame. And, it kind of felt like this was the way it was going to go for Harbaugh, even with needs at wide receiver. It felt like it was always going to be this kind of way in which they were going to get the tackle there to play the style of football that Harbaugh wants to play and that he has played, in all his years of coaching. It felt like it was going to go that way. Maybe they could have taken Latham here at 5, or maybe they could have traded down and gotten more picks, which I feel like they probably like to do, and take somebody like Fuaga or Latham or Olu or whoever. But they stuck at 5, and they are going to put Alt at right tackle. Now, I don't know too much about this. It's a little bit different than the situation we got at 7, which we'll talk about that here in a minute. But looking at that pick for the Chargers and Alt, listen, I don't know how he'll do at right tackle, but I'm betting the Chargers have a plan for him at right tackle with Rashawn Slater in place of left tackle. And, you got two bookends. And not only are you playing a physical style football that Harbaugh wants to play, but you also get some really good protection for Justin Herbert, in which you make sure that he is not on his back. And with how the Raiders are building up their defense, with the guys they brought in on that defensive line, and with the Chiefs and Spagnuolo, and I don't know what Denver's got on defense. I'd have to look and check, but you got to be able to protect your franchise quarterback as well as be able to play physical style football that your coach wants to run. So I like the pick for the Chargers, but I don't know about the fit at right tackle. I kind of question it, moving him from the left side to the right side. It could work. It worked out well for Lane Johnson. He was a guy that came in as a left tackle coming out of Oklahoma, going to Philly. He's been at right tackle, and he's thrived there for, it seems like, the past decade plus. So who am I to judge? So Joe Alt going to the LA Chargers. Let's talk about New York football Giants. I almost said Jets there for a second. We'll get to the Jets in a bit. But the Giants, JJ still there on the board at 6. You got the receivers on the board at 6 as well, and Nabers and Odunze. And I've been saying Odunze kind of fits more the profile in which they need a true X receiver. And I think maybe the Giants here and taking Nabers, let's just get the best receiver, the most explosive receiver in the draft, and let's take him here and put him in our offense. Now, we'll have to see what happens with that quarterback situation. Daniel Jones coming off ACL, I forget ACL, Achilles, but one of those injuries. And you wonder how he's going to come back from that. And, how his Nabers going to fit into this offense, and which has a lot of speed guys, a lot of guys that aren't really big, type of receivers that you can just lob it up to and throw it to. So the Giants take Nabers there. They take another receiver out of LSU, and it worked out pretty well for them the last time. So maybe it'll work out well for them here in taking Nabers here and just saying, hey, be our number one receiver here for the next several seasons. So the Giants take Nabers. I really like Nabers out this whole process. Even some teams like them more so than Harrison Jr., and which honestly, not that surprising because he has that extra gear that I feel like teams would really like to have on their offense. So Nabers goes to the Giants at number 6. And let's talk about what the Titans did at number 7. I kind of felt like this was a worst case scenario, if I'm being completely honest. Joe Alt off the board, Malik Nabers off the board. Maybe you could trade down, and apparently that was looked at here before they made the pick. Odunze was still on the board, and the Titans go with J.C. Latham, the tackle out of Alabama. And it seems like Bill Callahan really loves this guy. And, I'm going to be completely honest, I didn't really like the pick, but if Callahan thinks that he can be a stud left tackle, I mean, who am I to judge? The guy knows offensive line talent like the back of his hand, So who am I to judge him there? I kind of look back to another situation in which, back a few years ago, if you remember, when he was at Cleveland, they took Jedrick Willis, who is a right tackle out of Alabama, and he moved him to left tackle, and he's been there ever since. Haven't really heard anything bad about him. It feels like he's been pretty good there. So I feel like if you're the Titans, that's what you hope that you get out of Latham. Now, there is a possibility that it might not work out, and he's a right tackle or a guard, in which I really question using that on a guy at that position with a top 10 pick. And I really am worried about that, that it might not work out. I mean, all these picks might not work out at the end of the day, but with that, I'm kind of worried about it. And it's also a positional switch. The second straight year the Titans have done that. They did it with Skoronski last year, moving him from tackle to guard, and they're doing it with Latham, moving him to right tackle to left tackle. Last time he played left tackle was in high school, but if I remember reading some stuff about him, is that he was going to be a left tackle, but the guy at right tackle that they were going to have there at Bama couldn't make the switch. So put the best 5 out there. He stayed at right tackle. So Latham, listen, he's a strong, powerful tackle, insane wingspan, huge arms, long arms there. So you like that. I think Callahan sees something that he can work with at left tackle. And if you're the Titans, you now got your left side of your offensive line locked down with Latham and with Skoronsky. You got Cushenberry at center. And we'll have to see if they do anything else for the offensive line, whether it's in the draft or maybe they sign somebody else in free agency. But I've come around to it. I still am unsure about it. I think I would like Odunze and take him there at 7. It kind of feels like it fits with what Brian Callahan would have wanted to do in Cincinnati. But listen, you got to protect Will Levis. You got to find out if he is your guy for the foreseeable future. So I get it there. Maybe you could have traded down a little bit and got him there, or maybe you could have gotten Olu Fashanu a little bit later on. But this way it went. J.C. Latham goes number 7 to the Titans, and it's kind of funny. The Chargers are making a left tackle go to right tackle, and the Titans are making a right tackle go to left tackle. So it's kind of a nice, funny situation you got going there at number 7. All right. We got to talk about the biggest surprise of the night, and that is the Atlanta Falcons doing something that's making their quarterback upset, that's making their fan base scratching their head, that's got their owner scratching their head, entering the war room being all upset and wondering why. That is Michael Penix Jr. going to the Atlanta Falcons. And of course, Atlanta has signed Kirk Cousins to that huge deal in free agency. And so you're figuring, like, and I was too, it's like, well, listen, this pick is going to be to help the team compete for this year, because you don't sign Kirk if you don't plan to compete and win now. You just don't. So, like, it's going to be a defensive player, whether it's Byron Murphy, Dallas Turner, Quinyon Mitchell, whoever. It's going to be a pick that helps out the team now. And they go and pick Michael Penix Jr. I did not have him being the 4th quarterback off the board on my bingo card. Absolutely didn't. And it seems like a lot Atlanta's coaches really fell in love with him and how well he throws football. And let's be clear, he throws a beautiful football. He really does. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, they'll love playing with him, but it's just a matter of when, because he's going to be sitting behind Kirk for a while. And, if you're taking a look at his contract, with that 5th-year option, he's already 23. He's going to be 28 by the time that's up. And who knows how long Kirk will be there in Atlanta. Maybe it's a couple years, in which case he's 25. I just really don't know about that whole pick. And I see why Arthur Blank was upset about it. I see why Kirk was upset about it. He didn't know till last minute. And I joked in the group chat, maybe we got an Aaron Rodgers situation going on here, which, if you remember when they took Jordan Love, that maybe, that can inspire an MVP type of season for Kirk Cousins. So maybe if you're Atlanta, you got some, you might be thinking a little bit, if that's your game plan there. But really big shock there with Penix Jr. going to the Falcons at a really big. And that means you got 4 quarterbacks going in the first 8 picks, in which it led to a little bit of history tonight. And we'll get to that a little bit later on as we get down the line with these picks. So let's go and let's talk about number 9, and let's talk about the Bears helping out Caleb Williams, getting Odunze there. Listen, I love that pick for the Bears, helping out your quarterback. I'm sure Justin Fields would have loved this when he was the quarterback there, but he's in Pittsburgh now. So Odunze, this is a great pick for the Bears. Keenan Allen, he's in his 30s. He's got 1 year left on his deal. So not only is this a pick for right now, but also a pick for the future, and making sure, okay, Keenan's not going to be here forever. We already got our number 2 receiver along with DJ Moore, and we're good to go. So I love this pick for the Bears. They didn't need anything else on the offense line. I thought they were fine there. Maybe they could have gone defense, but I love this pick. Odunze going to the Bears. I don't know what it does fantasy-wise. I'm sure Matt will have more insight on that, but man, I love this pick for the Bears. The Bears have killed the draft so far. Of course, with number 1 pick in Caleb, you're already killing it so far, and then you take Rome. And in which case, some people thought Rome was the number 2 receiver in this draft, and they get him all the way at number 9, in which you had teams constantly asking to trade up and try to get one of those guys because there's a sense they were going to fall, and they didn't. Bears get him at 9, and there you go. And so now let's talk about the Jets helping out Aaron Rodgers, the GM. And the GM and Aaron Rodgers says, you know what? I want to stay upright this season. And it's also kind of a move for now and also for the future as well, because we talked about it before. We talked about it in the short that we posted on the YouTube channel. Morgan Moses, Tyron Smith, they're bound to get hurt sometime this year. They're on 1-year deals. It makes sense to go and grab a tackle. Sure, Brock is on there at the board at 10, but you do need some help. They go and grab Olu Fashanu out of Penn State. I don't know how much versatility he offers, so that might be a question mark for him. Also, the run blocking has been brought up, but this guy, clear tackle too, in my eyes. I didn't see anybody else, to be honest, going ahead of him. And he goes as a tackle 3, in which I still view him as a tackle 2, even though Latham was technically the second tackle taken. I like Fashanu a little bit more. Guy that has elite pass blocking traits. So if Aaron Rodgers is there for a little bit more time, he's going to have some excellent protection with Fashanu there at left tackle. But again, we'll have to see how long Aaron plays. But I like this pick by the Jets. They didn't go with the flashy pick. They went with the pick. It's like, okay, we need some help because we see long term those guys are not going to be here next year. And we need a guy that is. We need a left tackle that will be locked down there for the next decade. And I think that was the move here. And I like that move by the Jets and not going flashy, even though I felt like Brock, it made a little bit of sense here. They go with the pick that made the most sense, and that was getting Olu Fashanu here at number 10. So let's move on and talk about pick number 11 and talk about the Minnesota Vikings. Actually, swap that out there for a little bit because I totally forgot there was a trade there. And there's honestly, this was a trade that shocked me that this was the first one that went down. So Vikings Jets end up swapping, but listen, the point still stands about the Jets and Fashanu there. But Jayden McCarthy going to the Vikings here. It kind of felt like we had all kind of felt like in the draft lead up that Minnesota was one of the best landing spots for JJ, regardless of where the Vikings took him. And that is what happened here is the Vikings getting McCarthy. We talked about, those McVay Shanahan disciples really liking McCarthy and the type and him fitting into their system. O'Connell, it fits into the system. And I don't know if he's going to be thrown in right away. I imagine Darnold will get those first few games. But if you're McCarthy, you're going to a situation where you have Justin Jefferson, where you have Hawkinson when he comes back, Jordan Addison, and you added Aaron Jones. You got a decent offensive line and decent booking tackles and Christian Darrisaw, Brian O'Neill. You got a good offensive line there. And we'll talk about them later. They made a really good defensive pick. So, honestly, I love this pick for the Vikings. I think it's a great move by them. And so, yeah, not much more to say here about this one. I just really love this pick by the Vikings. All right, let's talk about what happened with the 12th overall pick. Let's go there to Denver. And this is where Bo Nix went. And it kind of felt like with how the quarterbacks were flying off the board here, it felt like if Denver didn't grab Bo Nix, and probably the Raiders were going to grab him, and Denver would be at a loss for the quarterback position for the rest of the draft. They maybe go Rattler later on, but it signaled to them if they want their guy, they got to go get him now. And I believe we talked about this earlier when we did our 20 question segment here on the pod a few weeks ago and talking about Nix and the Broncos. There's a lot of similarities to Drew Brees, his efficiency, his quickness to getting the ball out that could work well in a Sean Payton system. And I feel like that's the idea that they're going with here. So Bo Nix going to Denver. And Denver just got Zach Wilson from the Jets earlier in the week. So Bo Nix is going to be competing in that room. And listen, I don't know how I feel about it. It's a bit too rich. I feel like I'm with Matt on that one, and a lot of others that might be a little bit too rich to take Bo Nix at that spot. But I get it with how the quarterbacks are flying off the board. I feel like you kind of had to, or maybe you could have. Well, no, you couldn't have traded down. So it felt like the Broncos were pigeonholed here. It's like we got to get our guy now, or else we're not going to get him. And so I feel like that's what's behind this pick. So Bo Nix goes to the Denver Broncos here at number 12. At number 13, the Las Vegas Raiders. I got to tell you, this pick kind of surprised me. But in thinking about it, I really like this pick, and that is Brock Bowers to the Las Vegas Raiders. And I didn't really see that as a landing spot for Brock. You know, it was kind of tough seeing a potential spot for him. We talked about the Jets, maybe the Titans, maybe, the Broncos, maybe the Colts a little bit later on at 15. And it was just kind of like, okay, where can we find a spot for this guy? He goes to the Raiders, in which I think Antonio Pierce will appreciate his toughness. And it feels like the Raiders are going to play a lot more 12 personnel with him and Michael Mayer, their second round pick last year, in which Brock, he's a true offensive weapon. You can put him as an inline guy, or you can put him out wide, put him in the slot, and that gives whoever's the quarterback there, whether it's O'Connell or Minshew, it gives them another weapon along with Jacoby Myers, with Mayer, and with Devontae Adams. And so I kind of really like that because Brock brings a lot of versatility. He's really tough, played in the SEC for 3 years, was really good in the SEC for 3 years. And he goes to Vegas, in which, again, I think Antonio Pierce really is going to love the toughness that he can bring to that offense and that versatility that he can bring. So expect a lot of 12 personnel, I think, in Vegas next year as the Raiders take Brock Bowers. I think I love this pick by the Raiders. I didn't see this happening. I thought it would be likely an offense tackle or a corner and helping out, the line or the defense. But honestly, I have no problems with this pick. I actually kind of like it. Real good value here by the Raiders. A nice steal here at 13. And so Brock goes to the Las Vegas Raiders. And so, the Raiders hope that he can be their Travis Kelce. I feel like that might be too bit of a stretch, but I imagine that's what they hope for him to be their Travis Kelce, to be their version of that. And, they'll figure out who their Mahomes or their quarterback situation is later on, but they got their quote unquote Kelce for right now. And so I like this pick by the Raiders, getting Brock Bowers at 13. Now let's go to 14. Let's talk about the Saints here. And I felt like they absolutely need to go with the tackle here, and they go with Taliese Fuaga, the tackle from Oregon State. You don't know about Ryan Ramczyk's future. You don't know about Trevor Penning at left tackle. I don't know about Fuaga at left tackle, but Fuaga is a guy that has a mean streak, has a lot of power, really good right tackle. And so if Ramczyk is good to go, I feel like Fuaga, you can slide him inside at guard. If Ramczyk isn't, then Fuaga, you can put him in there at right tackle and keep Derek Carr upright, because that's something you're going to need to do here in hopes to try to keep him upright, get the ball to Olave, and make sure you have a chance to win the NFC South. So Fuaga there, I really like Fuaga, really powerful tackle. Probably not as powerful as Latham, but one of the most powerful tackles that we have here besides Latham. So I like that pick by the Saints. I feel like they need to go address tackle here with the uncertainty with those two guys. I feel like they need to address it. So they go and take Fuaga from Oregon State there and address a huge need. Now let's go to Indy at 15. And at this point, we've had 14 offensive players go within the first 14 picks. We've had 6 quarterbacks go in the first 12. Both of those are records that were broken this year. Absolutely insane to kind of think about with how long the draft has been going. 6 quarterbacks in the top 12, an insane run on offensive players, 14 here with no defensive players selected. And here at 15, we got the Colts taking the first defender off the board and Latu, the edge rusher out of UCLA. Now, of course, he's got some medical concerns, and that's been brought up. And you wondered, okay, is that going to cause him to fall a little bit? And it didn't. The Colts take him here in the top half of the draft, take him as the first defender off the board. They really like his pass rushing skill set. He can bring a lot of that to Indy, in which you're going to need that in this division, in which you saw the Titans take Latham. You see what they done this offseason. You've seen what the Texans have done this offseason. You see the Jaguars and what they've done. And for Indy, I feel like you need to get a guy out there on the edge to go after and get after these quarterbacks in here and have them constantly worried and think about, okay, where is Latu? Where is he? So as long as the medical's checked out and looks like they did, Indy took him here at 15. I feel like this could be a really good pick for Indy and helping out their edge rushing group. I feel like, they haven't had a guy there. I feel like Latu could be the guy there. And that's what Indy is banking on there at 15 and trying to make sure that he helps out their pass rush in a division that just got a lot more explosive on the offensive side of the ball with all three of those teams. So now let's go to number 16 and let's talk about the Seattle Seahawks. And I got to make sure that I didn't miss a trade. And I feel like I might have missed something here. Okay, no. So Seattle goes and takes Byron Murphy from Texas. Now, there's a lot of smoke that Murphy could go a little bit higher than this. And he goes to Seattle at 16. I like this pick by Mike McDonald. It feels like a pick that, McDonald would make with having defense in mind. You had a couple other guys on the board like Dallas Turner or Murphy or Jared Verse. You also had Fautanu on the board in which you could help out your offensive line. But Murphy here, best defensive tackle in this class by far. Best pass rushing defensive tackle in the class by far, too. And so you pair him up with Leonard Williams and that group on that side of the ball for Seattle, and that could really help out your defensive line and what Mike McDonald wants to do. So for Seattle, I like this pick. Murphy, good pass rushing defensive tackle, can add some juice there to get after the quarterback, and really fits what I think Mike McDonald wants to do coming in as the new head coach and trying to get his defensive line some more pressures. So Seattle taking Byron Murphy, the defensive tackle out of Texas, at number 16. I like that pick. He could have gone higher, and the Seahawks are probably thrilled that they got him at number 16. Now let's talk about a trade, and that is the Vikings wheeling and dealing, moving to 17, swapping 17 and 23 with Jacksonville. They snagged Dallas Turner off the board here at 17. And for the Vikings, you have got to be jumping up and down that you got Dallas Turner at number 17. You probably thought he was going to go in the top half of this draft at least, and you get him here at 17. I feel like for a Vikings fan, you got to be excited. You made additions on the defense side of the ball, adding Van Ginkel, adding Grenard, and this is just another piece for Brian Flores to play with on that side of the ball. And he's got to be really happy about that too, because he's got another guy here that he can just cause havoc and just, get all blitz happy with. And for the Vikings, listen, you see what the Lions have done on offense with Ben Johnson. You see what the Packers have done with all their offensive guys. You see what the Bears are doing in this draft. You got to get a guy to go after the quarterback and make their life miserable. And while Turner, he's not a polished product yet, he's still got some stuff to work on. For the Vikings, with a couple of guys you brought in free agency, feel like you can maybe take it slow a little bit. But you got a really talented edge rusher if you're Minnesota at number 17. And he's going to fit right into Brian Flores' defense. So I love this pick by the Vikings. Honestly, I really like what the teams in the NFC North have done. The Packers, of course, we'll talk about them a little bit later on at 25. I'm probably the lowest on their pick, and we'll get to the Lions. But honestly, I'm digging and what these NFC North teams are doing. in the first round so far. Now we'll have to see how the rest of the draft goes, but I'm really liking what I'm seeing out of all those teams. Now let's go to number 18, and let's talk about the Cincinnati Bengals and talk about them selecting Amarius Mims, the right tackle out of Georgia. Only made 8 starts, but when he was playing, he was really freaking good, and he has a great athletic profile as a right tackle. Really big guy, is 6'7", 6'8", 330, or he's just a big dude, and with with the Bengals signing Trent Brown and them already having Orlando Brown on the other side, uh, I mean, it fits the mold of what they want to do for both those tackles. And Mims, I feel like he's not going to play right away, and Trent Brown is only on a 1-year deal, so probably a little bit of a redshirt year, learning year. But listen, if you're the Bengals, you got to protect Joe Burrow. He's your chance, your only chance of getting back to the Super Bowl. You got to protect him, keep him upright. And this is a pick I feel like that long term goes into making sure that that happens and that he is able, along with Jamar Chase, to get back to the Super Bowl and try to win it that time and try to protect them. So it's a pick that is not going to play, I don't think, right away. I don't know if he can play at guard right away, so he's probably going to sit behind Trent Brown for the meantime. But listen, he's got elite potential for a right tackle. He's got all the traits you want. So for the Bengals, I like this pick. You don't have to play him right away, but he gets to learn behind a couple good ones in Orlando and Trent Brown. So let's go on and let's talk about the Los Angeles Rams making their first round pick in what seems like forever, and it feels like, they were one of those teams that were looking to trade up. And, I didn't make this comment in the group chat and I thought about it, but it's like, man, I guess the Rams really don't want to have to pick in the first round again. But here they are picking in the first round, and they take Jared Verse, the edge rusher out of Florida State. And I really like this pick by the Rams. Verse, big, powerful edge rusher at 6'3", 6'4", 250. Slides alongside Byron Murphy, in which that defense is going to need some pass rushing juice now that Aaron Donald has retired. And so you got him, Young, Kobe Turner on the inside of the defensive line. And so now you got some pieces on that defense to kind of work with, some young pieces on that front seven to really work with and get after the quarterback. Versus a guy I feel like can do that, produce that produced at Florida State too, had 18 sacks over his 2 seasons at Florida State. I really like this pick by the Rams. I felt like it was going to be a defensive guy, whether it was corner or edge rusher. Turns out Verse was the guy here. And so I love this pick by the Rams. They need a guy that can help out with that defense. And I feel like they got him. They got their guy. And I think he's going to be able to produce well. Again, he's got some stuff to work on. And all these guys do. But I feel like if you're the Rams, you take a pass rusher and you trust that it's going to work out and that he is going to develop into the guy that you took here at 19. So moving on, let's talk about what the Steelers did. Let's talk about what the Pittsburgh Steelers did. Peter's Steelers at number 20, and they get Troy Fautanu. And this is a guy I feel like the Steelers didn't expect to be on the board here at 20. And the Steelers have got to be thrilled about this one because Fautanu has excellent versatility. He feels like he can play anywhere on the offensive line. Can he play center? Maybe. He can play guard, can play tackle. If you're the Steelers, you love that he was still on the board, and you get a guy that has such excellent versatility. And if you got to be really happy about it. You can just plug and play him, and you're going to be good to go. And you're going to need him to because Russell Wilson doesn't have long. You want to see if Justin Fields has got anything, and we'll see what happens with that cornerback battle. And you drafted Roderick Jones last year. You get a guy in Fautanu that can slide in at guard, maybe beside him at left guard, or maybe he can go to right tackle. But either way, I love this pick by the Steelers. Get a guy in Fautanu that is really powerful, tough, brings excellent versatility, and kind of fits the Steelers and what they want to do. So I love this pick for Fautanu going here to Pittsburgh. Again, I gotta imagine Tomlin and the whole Pittsburgh crew there, they gotta be ecstatic that this guy fell all the way down to them at number 20. So let's talk about pick number 21 here and talk about Chop Robinson. Sticking with Peter here, Penn State here. Chop Robinson going 21 to the Miami Dolphins. I feel like an offensive lineman could have been taken here as well. Maybe Graham Barden, maybe Jackson Powers Johnson, maybe Jordan Morgan. But they go with Chop Robinson. And the thing with Chop is the athletic traits are all there. But it's kind of like Odafe Owe a few years ago, in which, he had all those athletic traits, but it's just the production. Can all those athletic traits translate into production? And I feel like that's the thing with Chop Robinson here is can that translate into some production and getting some sacks, getting those numbers up. And Bradley Chubb had a late season injury that wasn't great. And so the Dolphins need some help. They lost some guys on that defensive front, and they need somebody in Chop to be able to go after the quarterback. And Chop, I imagine, probably is going to be a guy that's a rotational piece early on and develop his pass rush moves. And if he develops his moves, I feel like that production can go up for him. And not just having a good pass rush win rate, and try saying that 5 times fast. But if he's able to get that up, I think that can translate into more sacks for him. In which case, Dolphins be really pleased about that. So, Chop Robinson, Penn State, goes to the Miami Dolphins at pick number 21. Now let's talk about our first cornerback off the board. And this is the latest that the first cornerback has gone off the board since I believe they said 1995. So it's been quite some time. I wasn't quite here yet the last time this happened. So the Eagles, they get one of the top guys to fall all the way down to them at 22. They gotta be, Howie Roseman's gotta be like, I just keep on winning, And listen, the Philly cornerback room got old really fast. We've talked about that here too. And Slay and Bradbury, they just got old fast. And they needed some youth back there. And they go invest in getting Quinyon Mitchell, who, honestly, it felt like he could have gone in the top half of the draft. But with how everything transpired with teams needing players on offense, teams needing quarterbacks, he goes here at 22. And the Eagles snag him up here. And he's going to be playing this Vic Fangio defense. And I imagine he's going to be asked to produce right away. And was a guy that was great throughout the whole draft process. Was just really great for him at the Senior Bowl, at the Combine. Just knocked out of the park. He goes all the way down here to number 22 with the Eagles. And he has all the traits to be what the Eagles need him to be in a number one corner when Slay and Bradbury are done. And maybe he slots in right away, takes one of their spots, and maybe they move off one of them. But the Eagles, they needed some cornerback help here, and they get that. And they got to be excited that the number one corner in the draft fell all the way down to 22 for them to snag him up and put him and plug him into that Vic Fangio defense that they're going to have this upcoming season. So if you're an Eagles fan, you just got to be really happy. It's like, yes, we got some help at corner. We got some youth there. We got a really talented guy in Quinyon Mitchell, a guy from Toledo, going here in round 1. So how about that? So Quinyon goes here to the Philadelphia Eagles here at number 22. At number 23, Jacksonville up on the board with that Minnesota swap, and they snag wide receiver 4 in Brian Thomas. And getting some help for Trevor Lawrence, you're going to absolutely need to do that with how the way the AFC South has gone this offseason. You're going to need to do that. And Thomas, sure, he had that 1 year production, so you have to be concerned. It's like, okay, is he a one hit wonder? If he is, tough pick here by the Jaguars. If he's not, and you hope he's not, then this is a great pick by Jacksonville, in which you've seen the hit rate on LSU receivers been pretty freaking good, And last time we had 2 LSU receivers go in the first round, it was all the way back in 21 with Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. So, I feel like if you're Jacksonville, you hope that this works out for you too, and that you get somebody that's Justin Jefferson like here at number 23, a guy that has that profile of a number one, but can he be that number one? Can he be that alpha guy? And he's got Gabe Davis on the other side of him. Christian Kirk is going to be working inside the field, and Thomas. How much of a speed threat is he going to be? Is he going to be just that, or is that going to be Gabe Davis? I think that's the question with Jacksonville here. So Jacksonville gets wide receiver 4 here to help out Trevor Lawrence, in which you absolutely need to. They could have gone corner here. Terrion Arnold went a pick after they took Thomas. So maybe they could have gone here. Maybe they feel like there's somebody better that they like later on. But they go with Brian Thomas here at number 23. And speaking of Terrion Arnold, let's talk about the Detroit Lions trading up for this pick with the Cowboys. I feel like this was a pick in anticipation of the Packers. I feel like the Packers, if Arnold was still on the board, they needed some cornerback help, and they would have snagged him here and placed him alongside Jair Alexander, or maybe not. Maybe they would have still gone Jordan Morgan here. But Terrion Arnold, I'd love this pick for Detroit. They need some cornerback help. They got Carlton Davis. Now they add Terrion Arnold to that back end and helping out their defense that needed some help on that back end. And that's been a weakness for them the last couple seasons. And they get some help on Arnold, who's a feisty, tough corner, is a physical guy, can make plays on the ball. If you're Detroit and you're Dan Campbell, you love that you're able to get him here at 24 and helping out your defense. And you're going to need him too, because you look at all these guys like Odunze coming into this conference in this division now with Caleb. You look at what the Packers and their young receivers are doing, and you got the Vikings and Jefferson and Addison. You need a guy to cover them and not be afraid to go out and be physical and cover them. And I feel like that fits Arnold to a T. So the Lions got him here at number 24. This is also one of my favorite picks. I love this pick for Detroit, and the crowd was super pumped up about it too. And I know they were really excited about it. It was like, yes, we finally got some cornerback help. Let's go. So Detroit there, getting Terrion Arnold at number 24. And speaking of the Green Bay Packers, they selected Jordan Morgan. And of course, they have a big hole at left tackle with David Bakhtiari gone, and they need somebody there to replace him. Now, Jordan Morgan is a guy that can maybe be a guard, those short arms. That's a concern here. But I imagine for the Packers, the plan is to see him at left tackle first and see how that works. If not, then you're going to shift him inside the guard. And you really hope that he works out left tackle. If he does end up being a guard, it's okay, but you really want him to be left tackle because you don't want to address this position again for the next decade. You don't want to have to address it again for a long, long time. You want to wait like you did with Bakhtiari a long time before you take your next left tackle. And so Packers, I feel like this is also a pick. You need to go and get your guy right here because there's somebody that's going to jump up and try to take him. And so that's what they did here, getting Jordan Morgan here. He's got a lot of experience too, and we'll just have to see where he fits in the NFL, whether it's at left tackle, whether it's at guard. So the Packers get some help for Jordan Love. They've spent a lot of picks on offense here recently. A lot of good young talent on the offense side of the ball, and that trend stays here. And getting help for Jordan Love, making sure his blind side is protected, and trying to get the ball to Romeo Doubs, to Christian Watson, to Luke Musgraves, and helping out guys like Josh Jacobs and A.J. Dillon. So this pick by the Packers, I like it, but I don't love it as much as the other picks in the NFC North. I love all the NFC North picks so far. I like this one. You need some help there at left tackle, but listen, I like the pick. Morgan brings a lot of experience, so Packers potentially get a David Bakhtiari replacement, in which they desperately need to get and address in this draft. Maybe they could have gone corner here. Maybe they wanted Terrion Arnold, or maybe they could have gone Cooper DeJean or Kool-Aid McKinstry. Kool-Aid is still on the board here as we head into round 2, but Morgan goes here to the Packers and getting a Bakhtiari replacement. Now let's talk about a guy I feel like it feels like he could have gone a little bit sooner, and that is Graham Barton, who I didn't know, found out during the draft from Brentwood, Tennessee. So there you go. Graham Barton, he's going to be locked in at center, I think, for the Bucks. They needed some interior offensive line help, and they're going to get that in Barton, who offers a lot of versatility. He can play anywhere on the offensive line of the ball, on the offensive line rather, and just you know own it, take control, whether it's at left tackle, center, right tackle, whatever. It does seem like the Bucks drafted him for him to be the center of right now, and I feel like this is going to be a guy that's going to be we're going to look up. It's like, yeah, that guy was really freaking good here, and the Bucks got him at number 26. So I feel like Barton is a guy offers a lot of versatility, uh, and will be a plug and play guy and a mainstay there for the Bucks offensive line for a really long time. And if you're a Bucks fan, you'll take that every day of the week. Get a plug and play guy that you know is going to be reliable, going to be really good, and could make a few Pro Bowls potentially. I feel like that could be Graham Barton. And so the Bucks get him here at number 26 and help out their offensive line, help out Baker Mayfield. You got to help him out because you did pay Baker a whole lot of money. So why not give him a center to help protect him and making sure he stays upright from any interior pass rush? And because, the interior pass rush has really started to increase in the NFL, has become a real nuisance for quarterbacks. I mean, it always has, but it feels like today it really is increased. So why not help out your quarterback there that you paid a whole lot of money to this offseason? So Graham Barton here, number 26 to the Buccaneers. Let's talk about the Arizona Cardinals here, back up on the clock, and them taking a Mizzou player, Darius Robinson. I believe I mocked him in the first ever mock for views, back with the mock 1.0 at 27. And he just brings a lot of inside outside versatility on the defensive line, something that Jonathan Gannon, a defensive guy, I'm sure loves, and can just place him anywhere on the front seven, whether it's inside or whether it's outside. He played a lot of both at Mizzou. I think more inside, but he has that versatility. Again, that's something Gannon I feel like will really love, and it's just a big, powerful edge rusher. I kind of feel like there's some Danico Autry in his game, in which if you look at Autry the last couple of years, when he was with the Titans, he was really good. And I feel like Gannon is hoping he can bring some of that to Arizona. Arizona needs some defensive help. They need somebody to get after the quarterback and help them out there. And so they get two premium positions here in the first round, receiver and edge. And I feel like if you're Arizona, you're like, cool, we got our receiver, check. We got our edge rusher, check. I feel like all they need now is a corner. And they got lots of picks to do it. So we'll have to see what they do. But so far, so good for the Arizona Cardinals in their first round and getting Darius Robinson along with Marvin Harrison Jr. So Mizzou guy goes here at number 27 to Arizona. So now let's talk about number 28 and talk about a pick that happened as we were getting set up here. So I got set up here around pick 28 or so. So I saw this pick happen as I was setting up. This was a trade with the Bills and the Chiefs. And the Chiefs, man, I used the GIF from Talladega Nights. I want to go fast. And that's exactly what the Chiefs are going to do this year. Drafting Xavier Worthy. It felt like with this pick with the Chiefs that, Worthy, as much as we love that fit and love drafting him to the Chiefs, felt like after them signing Hollywood Brown that it wasn't going to happen. But I believe Hollywood Brown only signed a 1-year deal. So that's an aspect of it I've kind of forgotten. And so now Xavier Worthy is going to the Chiefs, in which they got some serious speed now back on that side of the ball, in which you have some uncertainty with Rashid Rice and what kind of suspension is he going to get. Hollywood is only going to be on a 1-year deal. You need a guy to be a consistent pass catcher, and the Chiefs hope that Worthy can be that guy. He's going to bring that vertical element back into this offense. And is just going to create opportunities for Patrick Mahomes and create opportunities for guys to get open underneath for Kelsey. It's just going to help out this Chiefs offense a ton to have that element back into their offense. So Worthy ends up being a Chief after all, and I can't say I hate this pick. I mean, you know, speed kills in the NFL. You know, although the Dolphins for them it hasn't helped out, but you see what it does for them having guys like Waddle and Hill, where guys are constantly worried, like, oh man, these guys can outrun us, really pretty quickly. So Chiefs go there with Xavier Worthy, and I love this pick too. It seems like the group chat they loves this pick too. Certain Chiefs fan loves this pick, so yeah, Xavier Worthy, the first Texas receiver of the two to go off the board, and AD Mitchell, I believe, I had to go and take a look, but yeah, AD Mitchell still on the board here, so that's something to keep in mind here. So Xavier Worthy of the two Texas receivers goes off the board first. Now let's talk about number 29, the Cowboys here taking Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma. It felt like all the way through, it felt like an offensive line pick for the Cowboys, and that's what they went here. Guyton has elite tackle traits as well. He's a guy that probably could have gone earlier, but it seems like here lately he's kind of trending towards a little bit later in the first round, and that's exactly where he goes. Dallas gets him here at 29, and they bolster their offensive line that can play right tackle. Maybe he can play some left tackle. We'll have to see what they do with Tyler Smith, but it's a guy that offers some versatility there and can play some whichever position they want to try him out first. And Jerry, he's got, I feel like there's an Oklahoma connection. We know the Arkansas connection, but you drafted CD a few years ago, and so you take another Oklahoma Sooner, and you hope this one works out as good as that pick. So, Guyton, with those elite traits that he has, with that athleticism that he has, you place him on this offensive line, and you start to build back up in this offensive line, in which you hope it becomes a strength once again. I feel like there's maybe another position where they could add inside, maybe at center to help out with losing Biotish in the offseason. And maybe they can get back to those winning ways with that offensive line just running through people and running over people and getting back to that. I mean, they still need a running back, and that could be something they address, in round 2 and round 3. But this is a good start if you're the Cowboys, taking Tyler Guyton here at number 29, trading down, getting some more picks, and taking your guy here that can play right tackle or left tackle. So good pick by the Cowboys. At number 30, we got Matt's Baltimore Ravens here. And they go and take Nate Wiggins, a cornerback out of Clemson. They needed some cornerback help. And this is a guy that ran a super fast speed at the combine with the 40 time, a little bit on the thin side. So that is something to be concerned about, but is a smooth corner, a long corner, 6'1, 6'2, brings some size there, brings that speed there. So you love that. And you hope that he's able to blanket receivers alongside Marlon Humphrey and be a good corner duo with him. And you hope that, that weight isn't something to be a hindrance to him. Maybe adds a few more pounds to help him out with that in regards to the NFL. Because if I'm pretty sure NFL teams will try to attack that aspect of him if he doesn't put on weight, and they'll look to try to go after that, whether it's in the run game or whether it's in the pass game with these big physical receivers. So that's something to keep an eye on for the Ravens. But you need some cornerback help. You had him and Kool-Aid still on the board here. So you take him and you pair him alongside Marlon Humphrey and get Wiggins, a guy that can blanket receivers, has a little bit of toughness to him, even though the weight isn't there. So Ravens, go defense here at number 30. Then at number 31, this pick, honestly was kind of surprised when I saw this one on the ticker, and that is one of Matt's guys, Ricky Pearsall, going to the San Francisco 49ers at number 31. Kind of surprised by this one. And surprised that Ricky is what? He is wide receiver 6 here going off the board here. So we had We end up having 7 to go off the board here. But Pearsall being the 6th wide receiver off the board. And I feel and there's some uncertainty with Ayuk and with Debo, although those guys didn't get traded. Maybe something goes down a little bit later on this weekend. But you get Ricky Pearsall, and we talked about him on the ADP, and that's one of Matt's guys. I've seen him play at Florida for the last couple years. Really good receiver there. Just it was really good receiver. I keep on going back to that one play in which it looked like he caught it like the Jordan logo in triple coverage. Like I can't get that off of my mind. That whenever I think of Ricky Pearsall, that's what I think of is that catch. And that is an insane catch that he made. So Shanahan, he's going to know how to utilize this guy in this offense alongside Ayuk, alongside Debo, if they're still there, and it gets Brock another weapon on that offense to play around with. Now, maybe they could have gone get one of these defensive guys. Maybe they could have gone and get somebody on the offensive line. But I guess they felt, receiver was the move here to try to go and grab their guy while they could. And they get Pearsall, who's a good playmaker over the middle. So that could help out Brock a little bit too, with, Kittle getting a little bit up there in age. And again, the receiver situation, you don't know what's going to come of that. So you're concerned with that a little bit. And he offers some run after the catch ability. And we know how much the 49ers, they love that aspect in their players, especially receivers. So a little bit of surprise here by the 49ers and taking Ricky Pearsall. So unfortunately for Matt, if the Ravens won the receiver, I don't think he's gonna get one of his guys there with the Ravens. So he does get one of his guys though to go number 31, pick after the Ravens with the 49ers. So there you go. Ricky Pearsall, 31 to the 49ers. And then the last pick, and that is Xavier Legette going 32 in a trade up with the Panthers and Bills, and which I believe they swapped picks. I haven't seen the details of that trade, but I saw something that connected Legette with the Panthers and feels like they would take him there if he's still on the board at 33. And they just move up a pick, go and secure him. And he had a great final season at South Carolina, but it's kind of like Brian Thomas, that 1 year wonder. Is that going to translate? There's some DK, there's potentially some AJ Brown to his game. And if you're the Panthers, you're hoping that's what you're getting and adding him to Deontay Thomas, to Adam Thielen, and helping out Bryce Young. You need guys to help out your quarterback in which he struggled last year. And Legette is a move and trying to help make sure that your quarterback is going to be good to go, that your number one quarterback that you took last year, that he's got all the help, all the weapons that he needs to be able to succeed in Dave Canales' offense. So Legette stays in the Carolinas, goes to the Panthers here at number 32, and rounds out round 1. And so that is round 1, everybody. That's kind of our recap here. And just kind of taking a look at who's on the board for day 2. I'm going to try to see if I can find a best available here and see if I can pull that up. But, A.D. Mitchell comes to mind. Jackson Powers Johnson comes to mind. Kool-Aid McKinstry comes to mind as well as some of those top guys that are on the board. Johnny Newton as well. Chris Jenkins. There's a couple Michigan guys I expect to see come off the board early. Maybe Harbaugh takes one of them. I feel like that's a pretty safe bet that Harbaugh, with one of his picks in this draft, will take one of those Michigan guys. Maybe it's Mike Sanders still. Maybe it's Chris Jenkins. Maybe it's Blake Corum. We'll have to see. But I feel like that's a pretty safe bet. But yeah, a lot of good prospects still on the board that did not make it out of round 1. That made it out of round 1 and is going to be. You're pretty much sure that they're going to be round 2 picks and going to hear their name called pretty early on Friday. And we'll have to see how all that goes. But yeah, me and Matt will have that recap of it a little bit later on this weekend. So don't want to miss that. That'll be audio and that'll be video So whichever your preference is, if you want video, you got that. If you want audio, you got that as well. And I believe that is everything that I got for you all on this edition of the show. So thank you so much for tuning in to this round one recap. Again, a lot of twists and turns. I'm still kind of stunned by that Michael Penix move by the Falcons. I'm sure Kirk Cousins, Arthur Blank are too. So lots of surprises on night one. We'll see if there's any surprises for night two, and excited to see what night two brings us. So everybody, I'm Ryan McDaniel. That'll do it for me here. Hopefully you guys have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk to you for our round two and round three recap. So until then, stay safe, and we will talk to you all next time.